The sterile air of the recently reopened Pizzaplex was still all-embracing. The surfaces even more clean and shiny. The lights fresh and bright. Everywhere except for Memorial Lane, where things were kept in a little disarray for the atmosphere. The new Pizzaplex had taken a drastic solution to the sinkhole that had opened at the old location. Rockstar Row had become Memorial Lane. To combine the old with the new. Freddy, Chica, Monty, and Roxy now had their rooms right next to the artifacts recovered from the old Pizzaplex, and anything that was still in Fazbear storage. Like dismantled remains of the toy animatronics from all those decades ago. Scrap from the burnt down Fazbear Frights attraction purchased right from the defunct amusement park. Replica Freddy masks and other merchandise that was no longer being sold. And the most prized possession of the new Pizzaplex, a functioning animatronic from the old location. But that wasn't all. The thing too was an enigma, as it seemed to be a fully functioning daycare attendant as well. A glitch in the AI software kept the attendants from doing their intended functions, it being a one-man show animatronic. But something about the old Plex, and probably going insane from the loneliness, must have caused the glitch to simply fix itself, like a sort of one-man therapy. At least that was the theory everyone went with. This led to this specific animatronic taking on his intended moniker of Eclipse. Of course, he could still switch between his three personalities at will, but it no longer was depending on the light. Though, according to the machine, Moon still didn't like coming out when it was bright around him. Of course, the animatronic had his edges and wires fixed up, so nothing sharp or electrical was sticking out from his body. He had been cleaned, and some custom banged-up looking shell pieces had been reinserted and made specifically for him. Altogether, with new pants, the broken face was kept. It had just the right amount of eeriness to it, without inconveniencing the robot, that it helped a lot with the marketing of Memorial Lane. However, the existence of Eclipse in the new Pizzaplex, despite him getting quite easily accustomed to his new surroundings, was quite troubling for a specific animatronic that had been released in the new Pizzaplex for additional child safety. Just weeks, or more days, before Eclipse himself had arrived. The security puppet. No one at Fazbear understood the appeal of the security puppets, but they always ended up as fan favorites. And despite parents' complaints that the security puppets were scary and terrible at their job, one still had been supplied to the Pizzaplex. You were the new generation of Afton Robotics machinery, state of the art. Based on the old, almost ancient wire animatronics, refined and perfected from the old sister location. This time definitely without child capture devices hidden within. Your endoskeleton was made up of hundreds of individual segments, like those flexible wooden snake toys from the 80s. They allowed you the highest agility of any Afton Robotics animatronic to date. Your endoskeleton was covered by a thick layer of rubber to avoid pinching or squeezing from your segments. Atop of it, you wore a tight black and white, resilient layer of polyester clothing. Your hands ending in silly cartoon gloves that would have gotten Fazbear into hot water with Disney if they haven't given you 5 fingers per hand instead of 4. Your feet had silly, long-tipped jester shoes with bells, and your head was a beautiful recreation of Ballora's head, modified to fit more with the security puppet aesthetic, and of course, the glam rock of the Pizzaplex. You even had a magnetic tiara you placed on your head that you put on whenever you were about to enter the daycare, where you had been introduced as Princess Daydream to the excited yet still intimidated toddlers. But outside of the daycare, you were just called Security Puppet, and honestly, you preferred that name. Maybe that's why you avoided the daycare as often as you could. And probably also why you, despite having been introduced as the girlfriend of the daycare attendant and mediator between sun and moon, you preferred the company of the more calm and mature Eclipse. Not to mention, he called you by what you saw yourself as: the Security Puppet. It was late at night. The Pizzaplex had activated its nightly quarantine controls. No one got in, no one got out. Even though this could be regarded as an OSHA violation, there were no people present except for the night guard, who, well, couldn't care less. And, well, when did a health and safety officer come out during the night for an investigation? Probably never. The aforementioned night guard was currently sitting in Roxy Raceway's diner, taking full advantage of his employee discount of 5% on any food or drink under $9.99. A situation you took advantage of to steal yourself out of the daycare. While Sun wasn't looking, you snaked up via a pillar into the rafters, and then into the vents. The daycare 10 was meanwhile busy rearranging the ball pit balls by color. So he would be busy for a while. Your body slithered through the vents. They were still free of dust and cobwebs, something that in the coming weeks was sure to change, especially considering the thin layer of grey tuft that was already collecting at the vent exits. You stopped at every opening just to quickly peek at what was below you. You were still a new animatronic, more or less, in a new Pizzaplex with a almost completely different layout than the previous one. Of course, you weren't quite used to your new surroundings yet. Even the 3D map of the Pizzaplex that you could freely take a look at didn't show all the decorations. It would be more efficient to just remember everything. The vents were like your own unique form of fast travel, especially since you were the only animatronic agile and fast enough to fit through them. You stopped suddenly, hearing a familiar hum. Turning to your left, you peeked out. It appears your target has left Memorial Lane. You narrowed your eyes. Eclipse was walking through the atrium. What you were doing right now could be considered stalking, but as a machine that was built to desire human interaction, the nights were really the only times you felt something like boredom and needed to come up with things to do. You, just like the daycare attendant and Eclipse, weren't considered glamrock animatronics, so you didn't have your own green rooms. Neither did the night guard have any responsibility of locking you into the said green rooms. Honestly, another reason to keep Moon inside the daycare. The specific personality had initially been designed as the antagonist of the stage show and was now only meant to enforce the daycare nap time, something he now did quite diligently. But due to him having quite a nasty personality, he just loved annoying the hell out of the Glamrocks if they weren't in their charging stations during the scheduled blackouts, as they weren't following their nap time. The blackouts were when the electricity was rerouted to the charging stations to ensure the animatronics were at full capacity by the time the Pizzaplex opened. On the 12th day of the Pizzaplex being open, and your second day of being here, Monty had entered the daycare just before opening to choke the daycare attendant. Sadly though, by that time he had turned back into Sun, and the alligator was punishing the wrong personality. Eclipse was now sitting at an arcade, inserting a fast token. With him being so distracted, you quietly opened the vent cover, snaking your way down to the ground. Quietly, you approached Eclipse by crawling on all fours, on the carpet. But just as you were about to jump him, he greeted you. "Oh, hello there, security puppet." The plastic on your cheeks turned red when getting hot. This was to allow you to naturally blush by artificially heating up the head of your endoskeleton, which your body was now doing against your will. You hated blushing.
What are you doing, Eclipse?
You asked, giggling a little, placing your hands lightly on his shoulder as you looked past his head.
They had this game at my old Pizzaplex too.
You blinked in confusion.
This Pizzaplex location shares the same games as the previous location, Eclipse.
The Sun and Moon themed animatronic sighed in response, leaning a little against you for support.
Yes, but this is the only arcade machine of this game that is in the area I'm allowed to be in.
Eclipse was only allowed in the atrium, the lobby, and of course Memorial Lane. The reason being that the actual daycare attendant probably should not be allowed to meet with his counterpart. Moon being an exception of the rule, as the darker personality was a little more mature than Sun. The other places were off limits due to the damages he had occurred that could not be fixed, due to him needing to look banged up for Memorial Lane's presentation. He was just a little too fragile now for these risks. After all, Freddy had already slipped multiple times on a loose bowling ball inside of Chica Bowl. You now looked at the arcade Eclipse was playing. Freddy in Space 4. You knew there were at least 7 machines of that game inside the entire Pizzaplex, but Eclipse was correct. All but this one were in places Eclipse wasn't allowed to go to. You watched the animatronic skillfully play the game. He easily beat the high score. But as he was about to put the letters S, N, and M into the machine, obviously the intention being Sun and Moon, you placed your hand on his. Again you blushed as you did so. But
please double-check this sequence of letters with your profanity filter.
You hushed. 2 seconds later, Eclipse jumped back.
Oh, jeepers. I'm so sorry. What shall I type in instead?
Eclipse took a few steps away, too embarrassed by what he had typed. Despite his new occupation, most of his code was still based on being the daycare attendant, so he took things such as profanity quite serious. When he didn't answer, you simply typed MML to stand for Memorial Lane. Upon noticing, he slapped your back gently.
That is very kind of you.
You pressed enter. After that, you stayed close to him, curiously looking at him like a loyal puppy did his owner. The two of you stopped inside of the lobby, before the door to the hallway that led to the daycare.
I really want to go back. But you cannot. Reminding me of that will only make it worse.
He joked. You placed a hand on his back to slowly turn his attention away from the daycare. And to get his thoughts away, you asked,
explain to me how this Pizzaplex is different from yours.
Eclipse crossed his arms as the two of you walked forward.
Well, this is like a mirror,
he said. Spreading out his arms, he made a quick 360 spin.
Our arcade was on the east. Parts and services underground as well.
The new Pizzaplex had parts and services on the 5th floor, right above the atrium's glam rock band stage. During performances, the glam rocks would be lowered from the maintenance room via a ceiling lift. It was a bit more dramatic than the old Pizzaplex. The new Plex had only the maintenance tunnels down below, but that was because the new foundation was much more difficult to dig through due to its sturdiness. And well, lack of anything soft that was buried beneath and could cause another sinkhole. Eclipse stopped next to a souvenir cart that sold only seasonal merch. Right now it offered Chica and Freddy plushes in bikinis and swim shorts respectively. Eclipse grabbed one of them and tilted his head.
I think I like this place more,
he said as he held up the toy. What else was he supposed to say? Eclipse had awoken in the middle of a ruin, half broken and shattered. Something you were entirely unable to even comprehend due to your own programming. You then followed Eclipse into Memorial Lane.
I appreciate hearing that. Oh, why is that? It would sadden me if you disliked it here.
Eclipse blinked. Though he was confused at what you were saying, he understood what you meant.
I see.
The uncovered half of his endoskeleton revealed that he was smiling at you. Your right eye twitched a little in response and your face turned red. His smile only got a tiny bit smug as a response. You wore your emotions on your face. Not even the Glamrocks were as expressive as you were. He admired you for that. And he was now getting curious on the various ways he could affect you. He became a little bold and turned around, stopping you in your tracks. Without warning, he raised an arm, holding it above your shoulder before pushing you forward until your back hit the wall with his other hand. Your entire face turned red, and your eyes stared into his. He could see your endoskeleton teeth through the opening smiling mouth of your face. They were chattering excitedly.
What are you doing?
You hissed. Your CPU sending you a warning that you were heating up a little too much.
I find your reactions absolutely adorable,
he said. The joints of your legs and waist pushed themselves together, effectively making yourself a little smaller before him. As your faces touched, sparks and small electric shocks crackling romantically over your faces. Since you were doing the animatronic equivalent of a sensual kiss. But Eclipse didn't pull back at the first sparks. His unshelled, sharp claw grabbed your chest, where you had been given a relatively feminine and endoskeleton chest piece, giving your torso the shape of a woman. You heard the quiet tearing noise of sharp metal scratching over fabric, but he wasn't applying enough pressure to actually cause damage to it. After all, Eclipse was a gentle creature. Yet the energy imbalance caused by your kissing, it was motivating him. He wanted to explore this feeling, and considering you weren't pulling away from him, that meant that you liked what he was doing. Your foreheads touched with a hollow clong, before suddenly a light was shown into both of your faces. The night guard, covered in donut crumbs, was standing before the two of you, perplexed. "I'll get paid for this shit," he murmured. Thank you to the people who are supporting me on Ko-fi. You guys are keeping me alive.